two import. So we have been discussed the two important aspects, if you may talk about it. The two important aspects that call the transition. First of all, we discussed the food gatherer hunting to the economic development, and we may talk about a journey from the food gatherer hunting to the development of agriculture that we have discussed. Also, we have been discussed in the last class about the growth and development of agriculture, its characteristics, features, the climatic conditions, and in this regard, we have discussed on the role of the Neolithic culture that we have discussed as far as the block one is concerned. Now, or today we are going to talk about the introduction to the civilization that we must keep in mind, dear friends. Introduction to the early civilization. And in this regard, we must keep in mind whenever we are talking about the civilization. First of all, we must keep in mind, dear friends, this concept of civilization speaks about a settled, advanced, and the progressed life of the society or the mankind. How to believe? If we may just talk about the historical journey, the history, we have gone through it in the early phase, like the Lithians, Neolithians, Mesolithians, Paleolithians. They were living on a hunting and gathering. Then it transformed to the agriculture, and when agriculture was in progress at the time, we came to know that it is called the human being started to lead a settled life, because whenever the basic needs of the mankind is going to fulfilled, that we must keep in mind, dear friends. If we may talk about it today, the basic needs like food, shelter, clothes, health, and education. But when to talk about the civilization at the time, health and education was not attached to it. It was food, shelter, and the clothes. And it helped, it led to the development of the cities. So whenever the human being started to live or to settle on the bank of the rivers, we came to know that, like in 6th century BC, whenever we talk about the Indian history, we came to know the 16 Mahajanapadas. Mahajanapadas means the big cities. Janapada, Mahajanapada. Janapada means the cities, small cities. Mahajanapadas means the big cities. So people see that due to the advancement of agriculture and settled life, it led to the rise of the cities. Simple example for better understanding. We are now living in Bhubaneswar. Go back to 1947. The population of Bhubaneswar was only 30,000. Go back to 1977. The Jaidev Bihar area was jungle. It was the forest. The people were crossing that area, passing through the jungle. And if we talk about 100 years, 400 years, and we are talking about the thousand years ago, we came to know that the people started to settle on the bank of the rivers. Want to talk about the introduction to the early civilizations. And there was the development of the cities in one hand. Other hand, there was the social stratification, social hierarchy, social development. Because The individual started to live in a compact life. That you must keep in mind. In a very compact life. And we see when to talk about the latter Vedic age, the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, in context to India, go back to the Egyptian civilization, there was the top was the pharaoh, the king to whom we call. Next, the priest, the nobles, the artisans, the traders, the peasants, the slaves. So these are the social hierarchy that we must keep in mind, dear friend. And some political institutions developed because whenever human beings started to lead the settled life, at that time we must keep in mind some political institutions. Like if we talk of the Egyptian civilization, there was the old kingdom, new kingdom, the middle kingdom. If we talk about the Mesopotamian civilization, that the Ur, Nippur, Kis, Lagas. So these were the cities have been considered as the political center of achievements. Coming to the Greek civilization, so the Rome civilization, want to talk about the Greek civilization, many political institutions, like you might talk the Jerusalem, you might talk the executive, legislative, judiciary, have been developed. If you are coming to the Rome, we're talking the Comisia Centuriata, Comisia Tributa, Praetor. So the many political institutions have been developed. And similarly, when to talk about the shift lead to the development of the cities, we also came to know that the people started to communicate one to another, one region to another region, with the support of the writings. Therefore, the Egyptians they used the hieroglyphy, the Sumerians used the cuneifer, and if we talk of the Chinese used the pictographs. If we talk of the Harappan civilization, they had the script. It is mentioned in the seals of Harappa and organized economy. So, what economy was during the time of the Neolithic age? The same economy was not in the Harappan civilization. The same economy was not in the Egyptian civilization. As a result, due to the passing of the time, due to the marching of the time, we came to know that the economy became more institutionalized. The economy became well organized. That we must keep in mind, right? And when we talk about the civilizations, as per the history is concerned, all the civilizations flourished on the bank of the rivers. We people know that because human beings were getting the basic needs, and the major thing was they were getting the fertile land, the fertility of the soil. Another one is they were getting the abundant of water, the lavish water for the use of the agriculture, and also river was the means of the communications, one place to another. They were coming, they crossing over the river with the support of the boats, the bamboos, like this. And whenever we talk of the introduction of the civilization, dear friends, there are certain characteristics of the civilization. For your information, when to talk about the characteristics, the major characteristics of the civilization, that is called the urban centers. If we may talk about it today, Bhubaneswar, Delhi, Bombay, Madras, are the urban center. An urban center, we call it because there is the center of the trade and commerce. If we talk about better understanding, Bhubaneswar is the hub of trade and commerce. The many people from the different part of the country they visit to Bhubaneswar. Reason is what? Reason to extend the trade and commerce. It is the business center. On the other hand, it is the hub of the administration. Odisha is monitored now today by the administration. That administration's hub is Bhubaneswar, in the capital. Like the governor's house, we may talk about the legislative assembly, may talk about the secretariat, may talk about. So, When we are talking about the civilization difference, we must keep in mind the first characteristics is the urban centers. It is the characteristics of the civilization. And generally, the development of the cities. If you may talk about the in Ramayana, it is mentioned in Mahabharata, it is mentioned that about the cities. Like you may talk about the Saketa, you may talk about the in context to India, but to better understand it, Koshal, then may talk about the Kashi, you may talk about the Surasena, you may talk about the Asmakam Kamboj, you may talk the Anga, you may talk about Gandhar, the Brijij, Bhajij, the Mallaj, the Smakam. So these are the cities in context to India. And another characteristics that we talk about the political organizations. Whenever we may talk about a civilization, it may be the Mesopotamia civilization, Assyria civilization, Sumerian civilization, any civilization we may talk about it. There is the emergence of the kings, the role of the kings, the power and the positions of the kings. And similarly, dynasties. Dynasty, like you may talk about the Egyptian civilization. Near about 32 dynasties ruled over in Egypt as far as the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom is concerned. And in the other hand, we notice the government, the procedures of administration. It was well organized government, because that is the responsibility of the government that to look after the welfare of the people. Unless and until to look after the welfare of the people, it's difficult. We never say that there is a governmental rules. Rather, we talk about there is the mobs everywhere. If there is no political organization, there is the possibilities of the mobs everywhere. Now coming to dear friends, another characteristics of the civilization, we call it the social stratification, social change, social classification. Generally, the society in each and every civilization, the society was classified, the society was stratified, the society was split into different classes, like the rulers and the apex, then the priest, then the warriors, who were fought, who were fighting, or who fought for the cause of the people, growth and the development of the society. Then we talk about the farmers. Farmers are the backbone of the society. Without farmers, a society cannot be completed, cannot be constructed, because they toiled from morning to dusk for the servitudes, survival of the upper stratas. And the artisans. Artisans means like you might talk about it, your friends. When we are talking about the artisans, they are the a category of the people. Like you might talk about the carpenters, you might talk about the goldsmith, the blacksmith, you might talk about the handicrafts, applique workers. So we call them the artisans. And when to talk of the slaves, the responsibility was to toil themselves for the cause of the other people, the extent the service that you must keep in mind, dear friends. And the writing system was the another characteristics when to talk about the characteristics of the civilizations. So for your information, dear friends, uh, with the passage of the time, the people started to communicate to share their sorrows and the happiness, and with the support of the scripts, we call it the writings. Due to the development of the scripts, they could able to write. For your information, the Egyptians, they were writing the hieroglyphy. Hieroglyphy means the Pavitra Lekha, the cuneiform, the calligraphy by the Mesopotamians. So different kinds of scripts were developed by the people of the different civilizations. The purpose is to share their sorrows, happiness, and also to record the achievements, to record the legacies, to record the contributions of the civilization towards mankind. Now coming to the next characteristics, that is called the technological advancement. People see the great news today, everybody knows, that is Sunita Williams, who was for 9 months in the space, now coming to the earth. Just imagine, dear friends, what it speaks. It speaks about the advancement of the people, advancement of the technology. And in the same thing happen when we are talking about the civilization. For your information, dear friends, in each and every civilization, there was the advancement of the technology, science together. And when we talk of the science, technology, it leads to the preparations, melting of the metal tools, and also they use the technology to lift the water. We call it the water irrigation system. And also, we are talking about the construction techniques, like they were making the palaces, they were making the Great Wall by the China, when Shi Huangdi, the great ruler of the Shang dynasty of China. Similarly, we may talk about the Egyptians have been constructed the pyramids, and in context the Harappan civilization or the people of Harappa in context to India, they have been developed the great granaries. They have been developed the dancing girl, and also met out the great bath, the great drainage, the roads. It speaks about the another characteristics difference as far as we may talk about the technological advancement is concerned. Similarly, we are talking about the religious beliefs. Everybody knows difference. Religion is just like an opium. If I may talk about the statement of the Winston Churchill, Winston Churchill has rightly pointed out that key Indians, the Bharatiyas, we may use the term the Bharatiyas, we are just like the religion is an opium for the Bharatiya. Bharatiya Mananthan Dharma Huchi Apima Sadrusa. So therefore, when to talk about the religious belief, religious practices is another important characteristics as far as the civilization is concerned. And when to talk the religious beliefs, they were
Good evening,
polytheism.
sir.
Yes,
Good evening, sir.
yes, Rachana, very good evening.
Continue, kar, sir.
If people say that, I'm talking about what? I'm talking about the worship of the gods and goddesses in terms of the polytheism. Polytheism means to worship lots of gods and goddesses. As we people now, we worship lots of gods and goddesses. But if we talk about the Christians, they worship one God. If we talk of the Islam, they worship one God. If we talk about the Buddhist, they worship one God. The Jainas, one God. But whenever we talk about the Hindus, we worship many gods and goddesses. Like in the Egyptian civilization, just before Akhenaten, Amenhotep IV, we came to know that the Egyptians worshipped lots of gods and goddesses. And for your information, dear friends, they were known as the polytheists. They worship the nature, they worship the god, they worship the goddesses. It is another, even if also they have been constructed the temples in the ancient times, like you may talk the Karnak temple at Thebes. You may talk about the Parthenon temple. You may talk of the temple dedicated to the Artemis. So religious beliefs was the another characteristic features of the civilization. Our discussion has made an introduction to the civilization, how to understand what is civilization, what civilization we mean generally. So these are the characteristics it speaks about the civilization. And similarly, we're talking about the trade network. When to talk the trade network, we are talking about the exchange of the goods. Earlier, it was the barter system, the exchange of the goods. Uh, For your information, dear friends, whenever we make trade network, trade and commerce, it was the part of the economic development, economic conditions that we must keep in mind. And that trade and commerce was between the regions. We call it the internal trade and the external trade. The trade relationship with overseas, the diasporic relationship. And here what happened? Here there is the exchange of the goods in one hand. In other hand, there is the exchange of the ideas. If I may talk about the Odia Sadhavaj, I may ask the questions because it is recorded. We are using a bow. I mean, Odia Lokomane. We are using bow, B-O-U, bow. And many people are calling it map. Do you know the concept of a bow? The ideas of a bow is not ours. Rachana ma'am,
Yes, sir.
ଆମେ ମାଙ୍କୁ କଣ ଡାକୁଛନ୍ତି? ବୋଉ ଡାକୁଛନ୍ତି।
ହଁ ବୋଉ ଡାକୁଛନ୍ତି।
ସେ ବୋଉ ଶବ୍ଦଟା କଣ ଆମ ଓଡ଼ିଆର, ଓଡ଼ିଶାର?
ନା।
ଆଉ ସେଟା କୋଉଠୁ ଆସିଛି? କେବେ ମନ ଭିତରେ ପ୍ରଶ୍ନ ଆସିଛି?
ହଁ ବଙ୍ଗାଳୀ।
ନଟ୍ ବଙ୍ଗାଳୀ,
ବେଙ୍ଗଲରୁ
ନଟ୍
ଆସିଛି ସାର୍।
ବଙ୍ଗାଳୀ, ବାଙ୍ଗାଲୋର ନାହିଁ। ଆମର ଫର ୟୁର
ବଙ୍ଗାଳୀ
ଇନଫର୍ମେସନ,
ୱେଷ୍ଟ ବେଙ୍ଗଲ। ହଁ ସାର୍ କୁହନ୍ତୁ।
ୱେଷ୍ଟ ବେଙ୍ଗଲୋର ନାହିଁ, ନାଇଁ 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 ନାଇଁ। The concept of bow is coming from the Southeast Asian countries when the Sadhavas of Odisha were coming to Java, Sumatra, Borneo, Maldives for the purpose of the trade and commerce. In the Indonesian literature, it is mentioned that the concept of the bow is transmitted, the ideas transmitted from Southeast Asian countries to Odisha by our Sadhavas, by our Kalingan traders. Similarly, I'm talking about the trade network shares the ideas, shares the culture. So we call it the overseas culture. Now
ସାର୍
we have, yes, yes.
ଆପଣଙ୍କ କହିବା
हाँ वो शब्दटा, हाँ हेलो हेलो
କଳିଙ୍ଗ ଡାଇନେଷ୍ଟିରୁ ହିଁ ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟିଂ ହେଇଛି କି ସାର୍? ହଁ ନା ସାର୍,
କଳିଙ୍ଗ
କଳିଙ୍ଗ ଡାଇନେଷ୍ଟିରୁ ହିଁ ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟିଂ ହେଇଛି କି ସାର୍?
କଳିଙ୍ଗ ଡାଇନାଷ୍ଟି ନୁହେଁ। ଯେତେବେଳେ କଳିଙ୍ଗାନ୍ସ ମାନେ ସାଧବ ପୁଅ ମାନେ when they were coming to the trade relations, for the trade relations, so they have collected that culture. So bow culture originally not our culture. If you may talk about the Indonesian literature, ଆପଣ ଯଦି ପଢିବେ ଉତ୍କଳୀୟ ନୌବାଣିଜ୍ୟର ଏକ ରୋମାଞ୍ଚକର ଅଧ୍ୟାୟ, it is written by Durga Prasad Patti, and also if you can refer to the British record, the
सर
British
प्लीज सर जो मेंशन कले नाटा ଆଉ ବୁକ୍ ଟା ପ୍ଲିଜ ଆଉ ଥରେ ପ୍ଲିଜ ମେନସନ କରିଦେବେ।
हाँ ବହି ହଉଛି ଉତ୍କଳୀୟ ନୌବାଣିଜ୍ୟର ଏକ ରୋମାଞ୍ଚକର ଅଧ୍ୟାୟ। That book is written by Durga Prasad Patti, and he has composed that book by collecting the data from the British Museum, and he has reached at the conclusion that not only the bow but also the twin. ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ଜାଣିଛେ, everybody knows, when we were in our childhood, our mothers, grandmothers are generally speaking on twin goppo, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
हाँ, ये जो ट्वांटुइंग गप्पटा, actually this is not our गप्प. आमे ट्वांटुइंग गप्प जानी से समझते. But in the Indonesian literature, tua means the old man, tui means the old woman. But we interpret in the different ways. But the concept of the ideas is a transfer from one place to another due to the trade relations. Very simple to talk, dear friends. You are taught by me. Yeah, as far as the regional center Bhubaneswar is concerned, if you are taught by the people of the Rajasthan, the people of the other part of the country, you could have been able to learn his ideas, their culture, their way of teaching, my way of teaching, their language, my language. That we talk about the transformation of the ideas through trade and commerce. So, dear friends, these are the major characteristics we want to talk about to introduce the civilization. And now we are going to talk about the major civilizations as far as the Bronze Age civilization. Generally, the historians they have been pointed out that the Bronze civilizations, for your information, we are going to talk about it. That is called yes, the first one we discussed, transition, that portion is over. Introduction to the early civilization, that we discussed. Now coming to the Mesopotamia civilization. So dear friends, whenever we may talk about the Mesopotamia civilization, for the first time we must know what is the Mesopotamia means. Mesopotamia means a place between two rivers. One is the Tigris and the Euphrates. So always if people try to keep in mind that history is not story tells or tell, history is scientific by temperament. And in this regard, history needs to study with methodical approach, with the proper methods we can apply for the reconstruction of history. And dear friends, when we are talking about the Mesopotamian civilization, that civilization was flourished. There are certain parameters. One is the introduction, then the sources, then the geography, then we may talk about the legacies of the Mesopotamian civilization. And whenever we talk of the Mesopotamian civilization, it is enriched by the major three civilization. One is the Sumerian civilization, Assyrian civilization, and the Babylonian civilization. And whenever we talk about overall the Mesopotamian civilization, its tenure is 3000 to 500 539 BC. So near about 5000 Barsha. If you may talk the 3000 plus 2025, 5000 years back in all over the world, particularly on the bank of the cradle of the Tigris and the Euphrates, which is correspondent to the present Iraq. Present Iraq is ancient Mesopotamia civilization, and people say that the it is the cradle of the civilization, cradle of the civilization. Because of what? Because of the urban development, because of the development of the cities, because of the development of the political unities, because of the development of the laws. What today we are talking about the laws. আজি আমি যে আইন কথা কହୁଛେ, judiciary কথা কହୁଛେ, who was the founder of the judiciary system? If you may talk about Hammurabi, Hammurabi has been considered as the first lawgiver because he introduced the penal code, the code of procedure, code of you may talk about the commerce, So the different codes introduced by Hammurabi, and we are talking about the I told about the intro, then the sources. How to know regarding the Sumerian civilization? For your information, regarding the Sumerian civilization, we refer the archaeological remains, artifacts. We also refer the Mesopotamian literature. It speaks about the existence of the Sumerian civilization or the Mesopotamian civilization. And when we are talking about the cities, particularly Ur, Uruk, Babylon, Nineveh, Lagos, Keys, these are the cities, dear friends. And whenever we may talk about the uh, legacies of the Mesopotamian civilization, for your information, the Mesopotamian civilization, I told, as far as its a social condition, its economic condition, and the legacies. First of all, we talk about it, art of writing. So, difference in the Mesopotamian civilization, we came to know the people that transfer their ideas from one to another on the basis of, that you must keep in mind, dear friends. It is on the basis of the literature. What is that literature? That literature we may talk about. That literature we may talk about the cuneiform. Cuneiform was the art of writing that we may talk about it. And whenever we are talking about their major legacies, as you mean, the Sumerians, as per the Mesopotamian condition, the Sumerians, they developed their writings, uh, which is known as the Kilokalipi, the cuneiform. It is 4,000 years back. They had invented a kind of writing. And in this regard, according to J.M. Roberts, according to J.M. Roberts, he believes that for the first time, Rabban Kumatare, according to him, the writing, the development of the writing was started by the Mesopotamians, by the people of the Sumerians, because they started to develop a kind of the pictures, chavi lipi, means the scripts is the reflection of certain pictures, and they develop it on the clay slate. The Sumerians, the Mesopotamians, the Assyrians, or in the talk the Babylonians, they were writing, developing the script that was by aging. Kilok means by aging. Kiloklipi, cuneiform. The word cuneiform is derived from the Greek word kunos. Kunos means the age. Gugia. And what they were doing it after developing the script, the writing, they were dying on this, uh, what to say, in the sun ray. Surya Kiranara ତାକୁ ସେମାନେ ଶୁଖଉଥିଲେ, and then they were keeping it uh, as just like the library for the long term purposes. And difference we may talk about the latter end, as per the mature phase of the Mesopotamian civilization is concerned, the people used 350 pictures, symbols. And whenever we talk about like the Egyptians, the Sumerians, they were not familiar with the paper. And very simple to talk, dear friends. The slates, the writings developed by the Mesopotamians, the Sumerians, it was kept according to H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells Kunti, the books, uh, were developed by the Sumerians kept for the cause of the future generation. As Wells Kwanti, the Pustak, we are not the Pustak like what today we are using, the books today we are using. They were using the Pustak, the books in terms of the mud slate, Matika, Kaduo, Silota, and they were what is it, pressing the symbols and dying in the sun ray, and they were keeping it in the library for the long term for the cause of the future generations. And whenever we talk about their friends, the literature, very simple to talk, the Mesopotamians literature was a rich literature. How to believe it was rich? It was rich because the literature contains religion, dharma, Puranas, prayers, stories. These are the four features, the cardinal principles of the Mesopotamian literature. One could find story, one could find a religion, one could find the Puranas and the stories. And in this regard, dear friends, some stories have been accepted by the some stories which are accepted by the people, by the Jews. What are the stories? The major stories written by the Mesopotamians. That is called the tales of the evolution. Tales of the evolution. It is the story. Then we may talk about the decline of the man, the tale of the decline of a man. People say that everybody has the rise, growth, and a decay. Every civilization has the rise, growth, and a decay. And similarly, the Manushya Patanar Kahani means the tale speaks about how a human being was declined. And these two were more accepted by the people, more acclaimed by the people. And another important thing to hear, dear friends, uh, there is the story
Sir,
of
what
a
are the features of their books like story, religion, Purana, and another one is
another one is the tales, kahani, gappo,
so
religion,
story, religion, Purana, and tales.
and and the prayer and the
Prayer.
prayer.
Okay, sir.
Pra-
Story, religion, Purana, and prayer.
So people see that whenever we satisfy to the God, how to satisfy to God? We can satisfy the God through the prayers, through the bhakti. That we must keep in mind. And when we are talking about uh, the story, one story is described like the story of the shepherd, Mesa Palakar Kahani. Like I may talk about Etana or Etana. Etana is a character of the shepherd, and how he has tried his level best to make the uh, cattle, sheep cultivation more successful. That is mentioned in that story, like the Etana. And another important thing here when we're talking about the art and architecture, very simple to say, friends. The Sumerians also export, accept, export in terms of the construction of the palaces, like the Hammurabi, the rulers. They were not living in the hut. They were not living in the ordinary houses. They were living in the spatial palaces, the big palaces, and also they worship the gods and the goddesses in the temples. And very simple to talk, dear friends, go back to 3000 years back, we came to know that the Sumerians they could have been able to develop what is special imprint, a special types of the art and architecture. Very simple to talk. They use the clean burnt bricks for the construction of the houses. They use the podite. data, and as a result, they were constructed the big palaces, the big houses that we must keep in mind. And another important thing to hear, sometimes the questions might have happened to us, gee, why they, uh, for your information, whenever they were constructing the houses, constructing the palaces, they use khilan. Khilan means a kind of the kapcha that we may talk about the ginger, that knowledge they had. And the houses were one storied. Sometimes we notice the two storied. एक महला दो महला विशिष्ट घर थिला, and in there is the provisions to talk about that there was no doors where the Sumerians were living, because what it speaks from the Sumerian literature we came to know that the people were living in the houses without the doors. ତାଙ୍କର ଘର ମାନଙ୍କରେ କବାଟ ଲାଗୁନଥିଲା। ତାର କାରଣ କଣ ଥିଲା? It speaks about the clarity, the chastity, the progress, the development of the society. There was no dakat, no chori, there is no stealing, no theft. ଏସବୁ ନଥିଲା। Just imagine, dear friends, what is civilization we may talk about. And the temple is known as Jigurat. The temple is known as the Jigurat. Jigurat means the Swargar Parvata, the mountain of the heaven. Swargar Parvata, one Jigurat kohu, and Jigurat was multi-storied, and the top of the Jigurat was divided into two parts. Whenever we talk about it, dear friends, the top of the Jigurat, for your information, the the top of the Jigurat, the top of the Jigurat is very simple to tuck. The top of the Jigurat was classified, very simple to tuck, into two parts. In one part, there was that was meant for the gods and goddesses, and other part was meant for the priest. So, what was the responsibility of the priest? The responsibility of the priest was to predict the future by watching the movement of the stars, the movement of the planets, moon. And in this regard, if people see that, Prataka Mohalla Jibapai, whenever we talk about the system to how to come to the upper stair, there was the staircase system. Pahacha Vyavastha bhi thila. That we must keep in mind.
Sir, Jigurat in the means
Hmm.
a type of temple.
Jigurat was a type of temple. It was multi-storied, and the top of the Jigurat was divided into two. In one part, the priest was living, the priests were living. Other part, it was meant for the gods and the goddesses, and the priest's responsibility was to predict the future regarding the best and the good times of the future. Whether Banya, but okay,
Sir, as always like astrologer, they lived their work.
we may talk about it like this. They may also treat it as the astrologer like this.
They had
So,
astrologer idea of astrology.
the ideas they were master over the astrology. We may say that even today the same thing has happened. ଆଜି
Yes,
ବି
sir.
ତ ସେମିତି ଆଜି ବି ଦେଖନ୍ତୁ, suppose you are coming to any temple, the priests are also doing the same job. They are watching your palm, they are studying your forehead. The practice even today, Radhanath.
Yes, sir.
So now coming to the Sumerian science. The Sumerians were progressed in terms of the science. Now question comes, what kind of the science? They were expert. They were excel. They had, when we may talk about it, dear friends, the Sumerians, we are excel they were excel in the field of science and the technology. For your information, in the every ziggurat, the Jigurats were working just like the school. It was the About it was the center of the learning, or you may talk about the literature as you means. And very simple to talk, dear friends. For the purpose of the education, or to achieve education, or for the purpose of the learning, the students of both the male and the female, they were using the slate. I'm talking about the development of the science. And that slate concept is deals with, or it is the part of the scientific technology. And just 3,000 years back, even if they had the knowledge about the plowing the land with the application of the animals. And the most important thing is here, the Sumerians, that is the greatest legacies, the greatest contributions of the Sumerians to the world civilization. That is the invention of the wheel. And the wheel what speaks, the wheel speaks about the progress and the marching of the time. And they invented the bullock cart. And also they were expert in making the ship. And also at that time the bronze metal was developed, and the Sumerians had proved their expertise in making of the different bronze images. The friends, now we are talking about the mathematics. Whenever we talk about the mathematics, the practice of the Ponikia, what today we are talking about it, of the calculations, Ganana Padhati, how to calculate. The Sumerians were the expert. And the most important thing is here, they had the knowledge about the addition, subtraction, square, even if the division, that knowledge they had. And even if they also use the point, the decimal, the point system. And even if they have the knowledge about the trigonometry, or regarding the trapezium, regarding the square, regarding the rectangular, that kind of the knowledge they had. And whenever we talk about the astrology difference, the Sumerians had produced the calendar. We are talking about the Dinapanjika. So, for your information, how it was possible, what Radhanath has rightly pointed out, that whether the priests were working as the astrologer, yes, it's true. They were living at the top of the ziggurat and they were predicting, they were watching the movement of the sun, the moon. You may talk about the planets, you may talk about the stars, and by their movement, they were collecting the many informations. And as a result, they were determining the year, determine the month, and also determine the date of the month. ମାସକୁ ବର୍ଷକୁ 12 ମାସ, 12 ମାସକୁ ତ ପ୍ରତି ମାସ 30 ଦିନ, 30 ଦିନକୁ ଦୁଇ ଭାଗ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ପକ୍ଷ, then କହୁଛେ 24 ଘଣ୍ଟା. So in this way people say that the Sumerians we are experts when to talk about the uh, Mesopotamia civilization is concerned. And in this regard, dear friends, another civilization we might talk about that is called the Babylonian civilization. And just we may go back to 2750 years back. If you may add it today, it is 4750 years. We may notice that in the Mesopotamia, a community called the Akkadians, and whenever we may talk about the Babylonian, we came to know that the Babylonians, what they did, Akkadians, very simple to talk, they were a pastoral life, pastoral people, Akkadians, semane gote jati, like the tribal community. So they were moving from one place to another, and the Akkadians, when to talk about the Sargon. Sargon was, for your information, the first ruler of the Akkadians, and they defeated to the Sumerians. Because when to talk about the to victory, decline, defeat is the law of nature. And when to talk with the Sumerians were defeated in the hands of the Akkadians, they defeated to the Sumerians. And very simple to talk, dear friends. After the Akkadians, the Amorites, also another branch of the tribal communities, what they did, and they defeated to the Akkadians. And very simple to talk, the Amorites were more powerful. They were more powerful, and the great leader of the what to say the Amorites, the great leader of the Amorites was Hammurabi. The friends, Hammurabi is famous in the annals of the mankind. He's famous, he's appeared, he's recorded in the annals of mankind. Because of what? For your information, he is echoed in the annals of mankind because of his the legacies, because of his the contributions, and uh, his noble contributions. The noble contributions. What is that? That is called the code of conduct. What I told. That is the greatest contributions. So whenever we talk about the law book, we have right now the law book, the constitution, the law book. But Hammurabi what did? His laws, what Hammurabi developed, for your information, dear friends, it was just 8 feet height, 8 feet height, a slab, stone slab. 8 foot with a stone slab. And in that stone slab, Hammurabi's code, Hammurabi's laws were engraved. লেখা কি রহিছে, that you must keep in mind. And it was deciphered in the year 1902. 1902 ମସିହାରେ ତାକୁ ସୁଶାଠର ଆବିଷ୍କୃତ କରାଗଲା. So the code of conduct of the Hammurabi and the stone slab was discovered at Susa in the year 1902. And if people see that in that stone slab, what was mentioned? For your information, in that stone slab, both the Akkadians and the Amorites scripts were mentioned. But the Akkadians and the Hammurabi or the Amorites script was developed, and it is placed in front of the temple, and the temple dedicated to the Marduk. So Marduk temple, in front of the Marduk temple, the stone slab which was contained, the stone slab contained the laws, the code of conduct developed by the Hammurabi. And now, if I talk about your friends, in that slab, there was mentioned 285 code. If I talk about the Constitution of India, and the 395, the original articles, and later the sub-clause added to it, it is reached to, for your information, it is reached to 448. But in the code of conduct, which was introduced by the Hammurabi, it contains 285. Okay, and now, dear friends, whenever we may talk about the Hammurabi's code of conduct, it was more hard, because some historians have been pointed out that the code of Hammurabi was a tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye. Akhi badalare akhi, danto badalare danto. Arthat, the punishment was severe. Even if in that stone slab contains, suppose as I mentioned, the artisans, not the artisan, the mason. Suppose I had constructed a house. If the house was fallen, then I was victimized. Not the owner is responsible, but the person who constructed the house was responsible. And even if anyone was stolen the cows, ଯଦି କେହି ଗାଈକୁ ଚୋରଉଥିଲା, so the 10 times of the price of the cow was collected from the person. So from that point of view, Hammurabi's code of conduct was very, very, very hard. And I am talking about, dear friends, the mode of administration of the Hammurabi. Very simple to say, he was a law maker and he was a great administrator too, and he was the apex of the society because his law was the final. He was the apex of the judiciary, executive, and the legislature. And very simple to talk, he was autocrat because as a monarch of the Amorites, he was enjoying all sorts of the powers. And very simple to talk, the kings were thinking that Hammurabi was himself thinking that whenever he is ruling the people, he is just thinking that it is the instructions of the cosmos, it is the directions of the God. ये हूँ ऐश्वर्य शक्ति भगवान कहते जे लोक मान शासन करवा हूँ स्वर्गीय निजुक्ति. And the people see that, for your information, Hammurabi also instructed to whom? To the royal officials or the administrators. Always you respect towards soft corner, kindness, love, care, cooperation. To whom? To the subject. And whenever you are going to collect the tax from the subject, you don't use any kind of the harsh. Always you treat them as your friend. Always you treat them as your kith, as relatives, like this. And now, dear friends, when we are talking about the Babylonian civilization's social life, and very simple to say, dear friends, ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କର Babylonians ମାନଙ୍କର social life କଥାକୁ ଆଲୋଚନା କରୁଛେ, when we are talking about the social life, yes, mainly we notice, we can say that he was believed in divine theory. Yes, I mean, we may talk about the divine theory means it is the instruction of the God, and according to the God's word, Hammurabi was ruling. He believed on the divine power. And whenever we talk about, dear friends, the social life of the Babylonian civilization, it was three types. The first, they were the Amelu. Amelu were the first. Second, we may talk about Muskinu. They were the second. And for your information, the third, as you will see, the common people. And very simple to say, dear friends, the common people like the dasas, the slaves, as you mean, the peasants too. And in this regard, the social structure was pyramidal by nature. Now coming to the position of the women during the time of the Babylonian civilization, we came to know that, dear friends, what was the position of the women, whether the women were advanced, women empowerment was there. Babylonian civilization, Nari, their position was empowered. They were leading the most prosperous life because of they had the respect towards the women. And for your information, each and every woman of the Babylonian civilization was treated as the citizen of Babylonian because she had the right to cast up the vote to enjoy the political rights. And very simple to say, the women, we are also enjoying the right to the property. Earlier in the Constitution of India, there are the 7 fundamental rights, and the right to property right now abolished. And we might talk about the women, they were enjoying the power, political power, social power. Even if the property they could, property was ମାନେ ରଖିପାରୁଥିଲେ. And even if we may talk about ନାରୀମାନଙ୍କର ସ୍ୱତନ୍ତ୍ର କୀର୍ତ୍ତଦାସ ବି ଥିଲା. The women who are working in the royal orders, ଯେଉଁମାନେ ରାଜପରିବାର ନାରୀମାନେ ସେମାନଙ୍କର ବି କୀର୍ତ୍ତଦାସ ରହୁଥିଲେ. And we came to know that the social life was fine. Social life was so soothing. It was advanced. Dear friends, yet we have discussed the two civilizations. ଟିକେ ଆମେ 5 ମିନିଟ ଆମେ ଟିକେ ସାର୍ 5 ମିନିଟ ଆମେ ରେଷ୍ଟ ନବା. ଆପଣ ମାନେ ଯାହା ପଢେଇଲେ ଆମେ it is properly understandable or not?
Understandable.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. ଆମେ ଟିକେ ଖାଲି 4-5 ମିନିଟ ମୁଁ ଟିକେ ଖାଲି ଆସି ଯାଉଛି. आम लाइन रे थिबा we don't leave. Okay.
Yes, sir.
हाँ.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, mama. Okay.
हेलो आम स्टूडेंट्स मान भीतर जदि कि शुणुचंदी प्लीज कहबे को यूनिट टा कंटिन्यू अछि एबे
second unit.
Bronze civilization.
ब्रोंज सिविलाइजेशन
ସେଥିରେ ସବୁ ଯୋଉ ହରପ୍ପା ମେସୋପୋଟାମିଆ ଇଜିପ୍ଟ ଥାରି ଉପରେ ପଢା ହଉଛି।
Bronze civilization second.
ब्रोंज सिविलाइजेशन टा सेकंड ईयर अछि एथरे तो अर्बनिज्म द रोल ऑफ ट्रेड मोड ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन अछि किंतु ता पूर्व यूनिट सेकंड यूनिट और व्हाट there is another unit like bronze age civilization 1 unit 2
Bronze age
Mesopotamia and
civilization
its
one
cities
ta.
and then comes the Harpan world or
हाँ.
Harpan world okay thank you
एक्चुअली भाई कौन ହଉଛି କି ଏଗୁଡାରେ ଏକାବେଳେ ମିଶେଇକି ଦେଇ ଦେଇଛି ଗୋଟେ ୟୁନିଟ ରେ।
हाँ. सेटा divide होची two second first होची second होची.
ସିଏ ଫେଜ ବାଇ ଫେଜ ଦେଇଛି ଅଲଗା ବହି ଗୁଡାରେ ତାର ଥାଏ ସ୍ପେସିଫିକ ଯେ ଯୋଉଟା ଇଗ୍ନୋ ମେଟେରିଆଲ ରେ ଗୋଟେ ମାନେ ୟୁନିଟ ରେ ସବୁଗୁଡା ମିଶେଇକି ଦେଇଛି।
ନାଇଁ ଆମେ ସାରଙ୍କୁ ଆମେ ଆମ ବୁକ୍ ଟା ମାନେ ସାର୍ ସେଇଟା ଫଲୋ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ନା ଓଲ୍ଡ ବୁକ୍ ଫଲୋ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ସେଇଟା ବି ଆମେ ସାରଙ୍କୁ କହିବା କଥା କାହିଁକିନା ଦେଖ ମାନେ ଆମର ଯୋଉ ରୁଟିନ ଦିଆଯାଇଛି 4 to 5 days ଦିଆଯାଇଛି 4 to 5 days ଭିତରେ କଣ ଆମର ୟୁନିଟ 24 ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ କଣ ଆମେ କଣ୍ଟିନ୍ୟୁ କରିପାରିବା ସାରଙ୍କୁ ବି ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ହବ ନା।
ସାର୍ ଯାହା
ସେଟା
ପଢଉଛନ୍ତି ସବୁ
ହବନି।
important points ଗୁଡା କହୁଛନ୍ତି ନା।
इम्पोर्टाट
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
पॉइंट मैटर करनी मु सेरा माने मु ऑब्जेक्शन करनी किंतु
ହଁ
आमको जदि क्वेश्चन आसे क्वेश्चन पचारि दिए कि माने मेसोपोटामिया एंड सिटीज विषय रे देखो एबे 2.3 रे जोड़ा अछि हमर मेसोपोटामिया एंड इट्स सिटीज से सिटीज रो आमको जदि पचारिबो कि फीचर्स गुडा को कुओ सेठी हमें जिगुरात मेंशन करि परिबा कि देन ये जो हामुराबी विषय रे तांकर जो लॉस लाभ ऊपर ए सब मेंशन करि हबो कि सिटीज ऊपर आसीबो कहले
ଏସବୁ ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ପଏଣ୍ଟ ଏସବୁ ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ପଏଣ୍ଟ ଆମେ ସେଗୁଡାକୁ ନେଇକି ଡିସ୍କ୍ରାଇବ କରିକି ଲେଖିପାରିବା।
ओके टेल मी वन थिंग सिटीज ऊपर तमे माने सिटीज ऊपर किछि पॉइंट्स गुडा कहि दियो मते प्लीज
अरे सेटा इग्नो बुक्स तुम फॉलो करो सेतिर पॉइंट्स किछि पाई जीवो।
अरे मु तो सेया ही कहूची जेतेले मु बुक फॉलो करिवि मु आगुरु ग्रेजुएशन
Okay.
टाइम रे भी इग्नोरे माने प्रॉब्लम
The
होतला
thing.
बुक
So yes, Subodh. I think that Subodh or what?
सोबित सर सोबित
Okay, fine. Our discussion is made. The unit two, we may talk about it. What the syllabus is given. Just, just a second. Just a second, dear friends. Yes, my part is MHI-1. Okay. Yes. The unit, the block one, we have discussed in the last class that we may talk about the hunting and the gathering societies. We also discuss about the transition to the agriculture, and in that context, we have been highlighted the Neolithic revolutions. And when we are talking about the block two deals with your Bronze Age civilization. Why we talk about the Bronze Age civilization? Because the development of the bronze go back to the ancient times. Prior to it, the concept we may talk about it is the stone tool age, the lithic age we have discussed. And when to talk of the civilization, in context to the civilization, we discussed the Mesopotamia civilization. And in context to the Mesopotamia civilization, introduction to the early civilization we finished. Then we discuss also the Mesopotamia civilization, the Sumerians we finished, Babylonian going to finish. And there are how many units? Char, no, no, 40, 27 units, right? And we are getting only 6 days. 6 days means 12 hours. So 12 hours means every hour we are getting 2 chapters. So that we try to finish. ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ଦିନ ଚାରି ଚାରିଟା ଚାପ୍ଟରକୁ ଆମକୁ ଟଚ୍ କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ so that we can reach at 24 unit, right?
Yes, sir.
ସାର୍ ଆପଣ
Yes, sir.
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ ସାର୍ ଆପଣ ଚାରିଟା
ହଁ, yes,
ଚାପ୍ଟରକୁ
ରଚନା
ଫଲୋ କରିକି ମିକ୍ସ ଆପଣ ଚାରିଟା ଚାପ୍ଟରକୁ ଫଲୋ କରିକି ମିକ୍ସ କରିକି ପଢଉଛନ୍ତି କି?
Yes, yes.
ନାଇଁ, ମୁଁ
Per day
serially
ସେଇଭଳି ହିଁ
ପଢଉଛି।
ପଢାଯାଏ।
ମୁଁ serially ପଢଉଛି ମା ରଚନା। I am taking the class serially when to talk about the block 2 and the block 2 the Bronze Age civilization. There are the unit number 5 we finished. Then our discussion is going
ସାର୍
into unit number 6.
ଆଚ୍ଛା ଠିକ୍ ଅଛି ସାର୍। ସାର୍ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ଚାପ୍ଟରରୁ ମେନ୍ ମେନ୍ ପଏଣ୍ଟ କେମିତି ଆମେ ମନେ ରଖିବା ଡିସ୍କ୍ରାଇବ୍ କରିକି ଲେଖିବା ପାଇଁ?
Yes, yes. Suppose you are getting the question. The writing give an account of the writings of the Mesopotamians. Mesopotamians ମାନଙ୍କର writing କୁ ଆମେ ଲେଖିବା as a result. Suppose the question may long question, may short question. We may talk about it. The writing scale
Sir,
of the
sorry
Mesopotamians.
for interrupting. Sir, sir,
Ha.
the book you are following, there are how many units, sir?
What the book actually I am following as per your syllabus, not exactly what the IGNOU has provided the material. That book contains the
Sir,
20. That book contains the 20 unit, 20,
sir, but
24 unit.
24 units. Sir, I am getting confused. While you are teaching us, I am following the book and I am not getting all the points. That's why I got confused.
No, no,
Yes,
no.
sir. Yes, yes,
So no, actually, whenever we are the masters, that is
yes,
my
sir.
that is my
Yes, sir.
responsibility to use the refer the materials of the IGNOU, also refer the as I am working in the Utkal University. So
Sir.
I'm taking the class right now. I am in my chamber. So I am also referring double which the ancient world civilization. Also, I am using now uh, the Professor Himanshu Shekhar Patnaik, the three authors, Patnaik, Mahanti, and Das, the world history. Also, I refer J.W. Swine. So I'm referring, but what I am taking your class just for your better understanding. You just record or make your recorders because my teaching is pure methodical. There is no confusion in my teaching at all. Understood my point?
Yes, sir.
How
So
can
that
get record, sir?
mood
How can get
actually,
record?
yes, ma, actually I am poor, but I am thinking that you may know that to record my teaching, Whether there is the option in your mobile, there is the option to record my uh, teaching, then it would be more helpful whenever you are getting the time, just listen it. Understood?
सर
Yes.
सेकंड
Okay, sir.
क्लास स्टार्ट हवा टाइम रे जे होस्ट अछंती जो रीजनल क्लासरूम से मीटिंग रिकॉर्ड करूचंती से ही कर परिवे जदि से रिकॉर्ड मिल जाय परिवे ताले बेटर होता
You may get it, you may get it, there is no problem, you may get it.
यस
So now, coming to dear friends, going to
सर
finish this one and switch over to the Egyptian civilizations for your better understanding. So, dear friends, when we are talking about their economic life, very simple to say. Economically, the Babylonians were highly prosperous because their economy was divided into three parts. Part one, we call it the agriculture. Part two, we may talk about the trade and commerce. Part three, we may talk about the craft industries. And whenever we talk about the agriculture, the peasants of the Babylonian civilization, they produced wheat, they produced the barley, they produced the dates. These were the major, the thrust areas of agricultural production. And very simple to talk, dear friends. If we have gone through the book, the father of our history, Herodotus highly admired, Herodotus highly praised the way, the procedures of the planting the land, the procedures of the way they produced the agricultural production was highly acclaimed by the Herodotus in his writing. And very simple to talk, dear friends. They had the knowledge when to talk about the import and the export at the trade relation is concerned. The Babylonians, they export to the countries like India, to the countries like the European states. For example, that is food grains, dates, then the oil seeds, then we may talk the scheme, you may talk about the pottery. These were the exported items. And what they imported? They imported gold, silver, then we may talk the copper, then we may talk about the salt and the precious stones. Now, going to talk about it, dear friends, their religion, when to talk about, they also the polytheist. They worship lots of gods and the goddesses. And whenever we talk about the major god, he was the Marduk, and they believe that Marduk is the god of the evolution, as you mean, ତାଙ୍କୁ କୁହାଯାଏ ସୃଷ୍ଟିକର୍ତ୍ତା. But we the Indians, we the Bharatiyas, believe that Brahma Srishtikarta. And similarly, they also worship the goddess, like we talk about the Istar. And Istar was the supreme goddess during the time of the Babylonian civilization. And also they worship the Tammuz. Tammuz was the god of the plants, god of the trees. So lots of gods and goddesses they were worshipped. And whenever we talk about their contributions to the field of art and architecture, to the field of the sculptures, for your information, the Babylonians had constructed the tallest ziggurat, that is 650 foot, 650 foot ucha, and very simple to talk, dear friends, that ziggurat, if I talk about the wall of the ziggurat was 40 feet, and inside the ziggurat there was 300 rooms. Just imagine, dear friends, how grandiose, how massive it was. And it proves that on the walls of the ziggurat, the Sumerians, the architects, the sculptors, they had constructed, they had carved many images, floras, phonons. And whenever we talk about the writings, I have already told, because of their writing skill is known as the Kilakalipi, the cuneiform. But it is the fact, dear friends. One, one of the school excavated through the archaeological survey of India, and the wall of the school contains a signature line. What is that? One who masters, or one who knows writing, one who knows reading, shall shine like the sun and the moon. ସେ କହୁଥିଲେ ଯେ ଯିଏ ଲିଖନରେ ଶ୍ରେଷ୍ଠତା ଲାଭ କରିବ, one who excel in writing, one who excels in the reading should shine like the sun. ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟଙ୍କ ପରି ସେ ଚକଚକ କରିବ. It speaks that school was excavated in the year 1844. 1884 ମସିହାରେ ବାବିଲୋନିଆରେ ଗୋଟେ ସ୍କୁଲକୁ ଏସ୍କାଭେଟ୍ କରାଗଲା. From that school we came to know that the sentence is written. Just imagine, 4,000 5,000 years back the school contains the scriptures, and it speaks that the Babylonians were progress. They were smart, advanced in the literature, writing, and the education. Like you may talk about the science for your information, science and the technologies as you mean. In case of science, in case of mathematics, in case of the calendar, they were excelled because they had the knowledge about the mathematics, like the division, multiplication. You may talk the subtraction and the addition in one hand. Other hand, they had the knowledge regarding the weight or the measurement as it means. ওজনের মাপ আমি কହୁଛି, whenever today the measurement ওজনের মাপ আমার কোন কହୁଛି, that is called the gram, milligram, then meter, kilometer. Similarly, then we may talk about dear friends, like this the Babylonians had developed an unit of the measurement that is called the minna, and its weight was 1 pound, and 60 minna are considered as the shekel, and 60 minna formed a talent. These are the measurement of the Babylonians. And another important thing is here, dear friends, like the Sumerians, they had also developed the year calendar that I'm calling Varsha Panjika, and it is the year divided into 12 months, 1 month divided into 30 days. Then we may talk about every day is divided into the 24 hours, and they use the water watch and the sun watch. ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟ ଘଡ଼ି ଆଉ ଜଳ ଘଡ଼ି ବି ସେ ବ୍ୟବହାର କରୁଥିଲେ. So it was all about the development of the science and the technology, like we talk about it, dear friends. Now coming to the Assyrian civilization. Assyrian civilization, when we discuss it, very simple to say, dear friends, the Assyrians, they defeated because of where history believes that, according to the Spengler theory of the Oswald of Germany. He is the Oswald Spengler. He believes that every civilization passes through the rise, growth, and the decay in the law of nature. And whenever the Babylonian civilization was reached at the peak, apex, when it was reached at the apex, at the meantime, it was declined by 1900 Christopurpa, or BCE, as means the Hittites, another race, another community, they attacked on the Babylonians, and after that, Kassites. We may talk about the Sumerian civilization. The Mesopotamian civilization was ruled by many tribal races, like the Akkadians, Amorites, Babylonians, Hittites, Kassites, And whenever we may talk about the Kassite is concerned, dear friends, that we must keep in mind. They attacked to whom attacked the Babylonians and established the new civilization that is called the Assyrian civilization. And generally, when we talk of the Assyrians, who were they were a kind of the Semitic or the tribal kind of the tribal people. And very simple to say, dear friends, they are a ruler. Whenever we may talk about it, they were the Sennacherib. Sennacherib was the ruler that we must keep in mind. And we may talk about the Nineveh was the place of the political sovereignty, the place of the political power, the political corridor of the Sumerians. And Sennacherib made Nineveh one of the most powerful center of the politics. And after the Sennacherib, we may talk of the Ashurbanipal, was another king of the Assyrian civilization. Then we may talk about the Tiglath Pileser. Tiglath-Pileser was another king of the Sumerians, Assyrians. Then we may talk the Sargon II. They were the kings who ruled over the Sumerians. And now we may talk about the Nebuchadnezzar. So, like Ashurbanipal, Sennacherib, Nebuchadnezzar, so they were the rulers who ruled over the Assyrians. Now, coming to dear friends, whenever we talk about and the Nebuchadnezzar was famous for the hanging garden. Sometimes the questions might have been coming, dear friends. ଯେ କିଏ ଝୁଲା ବଗିଚା ତିଆରି କରିଥିଲେ ସେ ହଉଛନ୍ତି the hanging garden known as the Nebuchadnezzar. And now, dear friends, whenever we talk about their contributions, why we should remember them? ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଆଜି କାହିଁକି ପଢୁଛେ? After 5,000 years, ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ପଢୁଛେ because they are legacies. ତାଙ୍କର ମାନବ ଜାତିକୁ ଅବଦାନ ପାଇଁ ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ପଢୁଛେ. If people can remember me, if my teaching is suitable to people, if my teaching is more convenient to people, if my teaching had effect on people, then you must remember me. Dr. Parisar Sahusara was taking the class of the medieval societies and the ancient world. Yes, the class was a good class, had the impact. Then you people could remember me. If I may reach, I am reaching at you people. ମୁଁ ଯଦି ତୁମମାନଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ପହଞ୍ଚି ପାରୁଛି, ଠିକରେ ବୁଝେଇ ପାରୁଛି, then you people should remember me. Am I wrong or right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir,
Subhash?
you are right. Absolutely right, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir,
Okay.
absolutely right.
And sir, we are enjoying your teaching, sir. I just love it.
This is the online class. If you could attend my offline class,
Yes,
then
sir. I
you,
was thinking like that. If I could be your student, then it would be great for me. But here also, I am your student.
yes, it's right. It's right. It's right. Aha. नहीं, but suppose in future you are joining in the civils, ଯଦି କୋଉଠି civil service ରେ join କରୁଛ, like the Subhra Ranjan, I am taking the classes over there. Then you would be my direct student, and very important thing, my offline class.
Oh my God.
Or-
Okay, sir.
Okay, fine. So, dear friends, coming to the Dharma, OSCC, OES.
Actually, sir, how can we attend your offline class anywhere? Sir, is suitable
Okay,
for us.
okay. Okay. नहीं, the
Sir,
ignorance
କୌଣସି
making the
ପ୍ରକାର ଯଦି ପସିବଲ ହେଇପାରିବ ସେମିତିରେ ମୁଁ ବି ସାର୍ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ ରହୁଛି ତ ଆଉ
okay.
ଯଦି ବି ନିୟରେଷ୍ଟ ପିଲା ଥିବେ ଯୋଉଟା କି ଆମେ କିଛି ବି ସାର୍ ଆଟେଣ୍ଡ କରିପାରିବୁ ଯୋଉଟା କି ମାନେ ଆପଣଙ୍କ ପରମିଶନରେ ତ ବହୁତ ସୁଇଟେବଲ ହୁଅନ୍ତା ଆମ ପାଇଁ.
अच्छा ठीक I may implement you. So coming to dear friends, the contributions of the Assyrians. We may talk about religion. Everywhere, the when to talk of the civilization starts with a religion. We have a religion. We belong to the distinct religious group like the Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Jainas, Sikh. Similarly, when we talk about the Assyrians, they also worship many gods and goddesses. They were the polytheists. And as far as the data is concerned, or we may talk about the sources is made for your information, they worship 60 gods and goddesses. The Assyrians worship 60 gods and goddesses. And most important thing is here, they are taking the name. When to talk of the Nina, Nina was the great goddess of the Assyrians. In name of Nina, the city is known as the Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrians, known as the Nineveh. And even if we went to talk about the people had the faith on the black magic, like the Hindus, like the Vedas also speaks about the black magics. So the Assyrians also believe the black magics. Okay, it's my great pleasure, my great pleasure. Now, coming to dear friends, the sculpture, art, and I may talk about the paintings. Dear friends, the Assyrians, they were advanced, they excelled themselves due to the marching of the time, due to the progress of the time. What happened? They excelled. They were constructing the beautiful palaces. They were constructing the beautiful temples, and it speaks about temple, the palaces were the board of the cradle of the Assyria's art and architecture. And very simple to talk. They constructed the palaces with the application of these stones that you must keep in mind, dear friends. And if we talk about the solar system today, so the palaces, the top portion there was the solar panel. And when to talk about to make the houses more comfortably beautiful, so they were making the bricks more colorful. And even if they had the knowledge how to make the house more glazing, so that they use the technology to glaze the houses. And most important thing is here, dear friends, we came to know that the image of the bull Sandhara Murti, it was also another aspects of the sculptures of the Sumerians or the Assyrians. I'm talking about it. And regarding the education, they had the knowledge about how to write, how to speak. They had the knowledge, and because from the Nineveh, the world's largest library that has been traced out, and it speaks about the knowledge for your information the Assyrians are having. Now, coming to dear friends, the military achievements of the Sumerian Assyrians, the military achievement. Very simple to say, the Assyrians, the rulers like the Nebuchadnezzar, if I talk about the Sargon II, the Sennacherib, they were the Assyrian rulers. They were stout and stable because of they had a sound and the stable army organization they had, and even if they were using the chariot, war chariot, ଯୁଦ୍ଧ ରଥ they ବ୍ୟବହାର କରୁଥିଲେ and ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ for your information dear friends, the Assyrians had the knowledge about the use of the horse, ঘোড়ার ব্যবহার. If we may talk about the Mahabharata, the Ramayana later on, we notice that application of the horse as the part of the military or the army cavalry. Then we may talk the elephantry. Then we may talk the infantry, cavalry, infantry, infantry. We may talk the war chariots. That we must keep in mind, dear friends. And we are talking about the Banijya. For your information, like the if I talk about I'm talking about the Sumerians, like the Babylonians. The Assyrians also had their trade and commerce, both the internal and the external trade was flourished. And very simple to talk, dear friends, they were the first in the world. They were the first in the world who had been introduced the invented coin मुद्रा के व्यवहार करुथिले as the medium of the transaction of the good what today we people are doing it. आज आमे जो सब वाणिज्य व्यवसाय करूचे we are purchasing something, we are giving the money, and that a concept of the money, particularly the mudra coin, it was a silver coin which was used by the Assyrians. And whenever I talk about the law and commerce, law and judiciary was highly prosperous. There was the punishment was severe. Punishment was severe because for the silly mistakes there was the great punishment for your information. And very important thing is here, there was the possibilities of the cutting of the limbs. नाक काटी दौथिले, कान काटी दौथिले, जीभ काटी दौथिले, गोड़ काटी दौथिले. So punishment was severe. As a result ଆମର ଗୋଟେ ଓଡ଼ିଆରେ କଥା ଅଛି ନା, ମାଡ଼କୁ ମହାଦେବ ଡରନ୍ତି. ଯଦି during the time of the ଆଜି ଦେଖନ୍ତୁ ଭାରତ ବର୍ଷରେ every day, every moment, everywhere that the murder, killing, teasing, harassment, everywhere because the punishment is liberal. Now the punishment is liberal. Once ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛେ ଏବେ the police department is doing the encounter. खाली एनकाउंटर करी खाली गोली मार दउछे तापर से ठीक है जाउछे. No, in the civilization we talk about there was the limb cutting system, अंग छेदन व्यवस्था थिला. It was, dear friends, all about your the Sumerian civilization. Now going to talk about, now we are going to discuss about the another I'm talking about. This is called 7. Coming to unit 7, that is called the Egyptian civilization. So dear friends, whenever we are talking about the Egyptian civilization, for your information, it was one of the most progressive civilization in the world. How to know? Herodotus, the father of history, has pointed out that the Egyptian civilization is known as the gift of the Nile. ये होची नील नदीर अवदान बा नील नदीर उपहार. We may talk about it. And very simple to say, dear friends, when we are talking about the Egyptian civilization, it was flourished on the bank of the river Nile. And as we know, Nile is the longest river in the world. And it is the fact, dear friends, when to talk about the civilization, it is the same back to the 3000 to 525. This is the timeline. 3000 to 525. It was the BC. It was the period of the Missouri civilization, Egyptian civilization, or we may talk of the Nile Valley civilization. Question comes, dear friends. When to talk about the Egyptian civilization, we notice that the highest development was attained. Everybody knows the pyramid, 7 wonders of the world. सप्ताश्चर्य मध्य गोटे the pyramid, that pyramid, the tallest pyramid, the grand pyramid, which was developed by the Pharaoh Khufu at Gizeh of the Egypt, if we may talk about it. And whenever we talk about it, dear friends, Campbellians, we know the sources about the Egyptian civilization, that is called from the Rosetta Stone. Now question comes, what is the Rosetta Stone? Dear friends, Rosetta was an engineer. Rosetta was an engineer. Rosetta was an engineer thile. That we must keep in mind when Napoleon Bonaparte, for your information, extended his military expedition to Egypt. When Napoleon Bonaparte extended his military expedition to Egypt, at the meantime, he was accompanied with an engineer. He was Rosetta. And their friends, when they were when they were bathing in the river Nile, ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେମାନେ river Nile ରେ ଗାଧଉଛନ୍ତି, so Rosetta, the engineer, his name very simple to talk, dear friends. He was bathing in the river Nile and was putting his leg on a stone. आज आमे माने जेमती पोखरी को जानते गाधेवा पाई, एबे त आमे पोखरी को जाउनी, we people use the washroom, and किंतु सेते बेला आमे जेतल पोखरी को जाउथिले गाधेवा पाई, both the male and the female in every pond, in every river, आपण मान जो मान जदि देखिथिबे गां गली मानकरे, ताकू आमे कहू तोठ, आमे ताकू कोन कहू तोठ, राइट?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
ଆମର ଗାଁ ଗହଳିରେ ସବୁ ତୋଠ କହନ୍ତି ନା ତୁଠ କହନ୍ତି?
Sir, Tuttho kuhante.
ଆଚ୍ଛା
That is
ଆଚ୍ଛା,
called Tuttho.
କୋଉ ଏରିଆ? ସୁଭାଷିନୀ ଘର କୋଉଠି?
Sir, Keonjhar.
କେଉଁଝରରେ ତୁଠ କହନ୍ତି, ଓକେ। ଆମେ
Sir,
ଯୋଉ
ଆମର
ତୁଠ,
ଗାଁରେ ଅଛି।
ଆଚ୍ଛା, ଓକେ ଓକେ ଓକେ।
ଆଜ୍ଞା।
ଆମର ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ତୁଠ କହୁଛେ, for your information dear friends, so Rosetta was bathing by putting his leg on a stone that he discovered from the bank of the river Nile, and that the stone piece contains some scripts of the Egyptians ମାନଙ୍କର କିଛି script ସେ stone ଉପରେ ଲେଖା ଯାଇଥିଲା, and it is the Rosetta Stone inscription. Sometimes we are talking about it in the world. The first inscription, the study of the inscription on the epigraphy, the first inscription found on the bank of the river Nile, and Rosetta took away it, taku anile, in the name of Rosetta, the inscription was known as the Rosetta Stone inscription, and later on, dear friends, in the year 1822, the Rosetta Stone was deciphered, ତାକୁ ପଢା ଗଲା, ପାଠରୁ ଉଦ୍ଧାର କରାଗଲା, and ତାକୁ କିଏ କଲେ? Who deciphered it? He was Campbellian, Francis Campbellian, ତାକୁ ସେ ପଢିଲେ, and from that inscription we came to know about the growth, development, the progress of the Egyptian civilization or the Egyptians. Dear friends, we are talking about this is the sources. Now coming to the next part, that we are talking about the geography. Question comes, dear friends, why I am emphasizing on geography. For your information, you may take the another classes by any other teachers, and then if people just make the comparison, whenever my class is concerned, my class is purely methodical because it believes on methods. Intro we discussed, then sources we discussed, and the primary sources, secondary sources like the books, the journals, periodicals, articles, magazines, newspapers. It provides the knowledge to us about the Egyptian civilization, their legacies, their avadan also. It cannot be relegated, it cannot be rejected, dear friends. Now coming to geography, where exactly Egypt was located? So dear friends, in the northeast of Africa, for your information, we came to know that the location, the identification of the Egypt is the northeast of Africa, and it is on the bank of the Mediterranean Sea. And very simple to talk, dear friends. Every year in the river Nile, there flood comes. प्रत्येक वर्ष नीला नदी रे बन्या आछे, and whenever the flood comes, it deposits the fertile soil on its bank, and as a result, the pigeons, the farmers or the slaves, they could produce the highest amount of the agricultural production. As a result, keeping in view of the agriculture, the Egyptians were more advanced in the field of literature, field of science and technology, fields of arts, we may talk the religion, in each and every field, they were excelled. Now, going to talk about it, dear friends, the next part. Why we may talk about the measure is the gift of Nile? Why we may talk about it, dear friends? Sometimes the questions are unabated. Very simple to talk, dear friends. It is the gift of the Nile, said by the Herodotus, the father of history. Because of the river Nile's left the legacies, Liver Nile's legacies, Liver Nile's contributions for the enrichment of the Egyptians. And whenever we talk about, dear friends, the Egyptians particularly, it was ruled by the Egyptians were ruled by when to talk about their dynasties. Earlier in the Egypt, the people they were the tribals, but gradually the people tried to settle in the Egypt. The pigeons, they are not the in original inhabitants. They are migrated from the other parts and settled on the bank of the river Nile. And whenever we talk of the political history of the Egypt, it is divided into three parts. One is the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. Whenever we talk about the Old Kingdom, dear friends, it is known as the age of the pyramids, and that time period is 3000 to 2000 BC. When we may talk about the Middle Age, it is 2000 to 750 BC. We call it the Middle Kingdom. The Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom, it is from 1580 to 1100 Christopher BCE. So now question comes, dear friends. Each and every kingdom in Egypt once upon a time, 32 dynasties ruled over. And the Menes was the first, as far the history is concerned. Menes was the first ruler of the Egypt. And from Menes, we have cutting across lots of the kings who have ruled over it. And you want to talk the old kingdom, there was the six dynasties, and its capital was the Memphis. The capital of the old kingdom was the Memphis, its ruler was the Menes, and other rulers, like you may talk about the pharaohs, you may talk about the Sneferu, you may talk about the Pharaoh Khufu, you may talk about the Pepi II, they were the rulers. Understood my point, dear friends? Bujuji,
Yes, sir.
Yes,
ବୁଝି
sir. Yes,
ହଉଛି.
sir.
Yes, sir.
thank you, thank you. This period is known as the Pyramid Age because in this period, the Pharaoh Khufu and other rulers they put the time for the construction of the pyramid, and a large number of the pyramids have been constructed during that time. And coming to the Middle Kingdom, in the Middle Kingdom also we notice there are certain dynasties ruled over it, and that dynasty continues near about 300 years. A Middle Kingdom 300 ବର୍ଷ ପ୍ରଶାସନ କରିଥିଲା. And for your information, the Misraelis, the Egyptians, were the first in the world who introduced the chariot and the horse too. I'm coaching Assyrians also. The Egyptian also used the horse. And the most king was the Ahmas. Ahmas to Thomas. They were the major rulers when to talk about the Middle Kingdom is concerned. Now coming to the New Kingdom, when to talk about the New Kingdom, particularly in Misr, the golden era was started. That you must keep in mind, dear friends. The new era, the golden era mean started in Egypt particularly, when the rulers like, you might talk about it, dear friends, the rulers like the Thomas, first to Thomas, then his wife, the Hatshepsut, or Hatshepsut, sometimes also pronounced by the scholars. And if I talk about Thomas III, they were the rulers. And under their leadership, under their able guidance as well, with their foresightedness and the vision, Egypt witnessed the golden era. It was, dear friends, then we may talk about the Ramses first, Ramses second, Ramses third. They were also. So now coming to uh, talk about the social life of the Egyptians. It was all about the political life,
Sir,
the political dynasty. Yes,
sir, I have a question. Sir,
yes, why not?
sir, how can we say particular one period is a golden period? What is the basic feature of golden period?
Beta, when to talk about the golden period, sometimes the questions are narrated to my mind or to us. Gee, if we may talk about it today, the human beings have been reached at this space, and if we talk about today's news, Sunita Williams is coming from the space station to the Earth. Still, we are not talking about the golden phase of the human civilization, because when we are talking about the golden age, there is the all-round development. It is the social development, it is the political development, the economic development, it is the development of the science and the technology, development of the ethics and the morality, development of the assimilation and the accommodations. So all the virtues, when put together, we call it the golden age. Like the Gupta age was the golden age. Like the Meiji age of the Japan known as the golden age. Like the Pericles age is known as the golden age. Like talk about it, your friends. Yes. The Queen Elizabeth age of England is known as the golden age. The Augustus Caesar of the Rome is known as the golden age. Whenever Radha, we may talk about the golden age where there is the all-round development of the society. Therefore, we call it the golden age.
Thank you, sir.
So, whenever we talk about the social life, for your information, the most important place, the Egyptian society was pyramidal by nature. Egyptian society was pyramidal. There is the top and the bottom. At the top, there are the pharaohs, the rulers, the kings, and they were getting all sorts of the facilities like the Oroji bed, Koji chair, and we talk the sky catching building. And next to, they were getting all sorts of the facilities from the society. Next to the coming to the nobles, then the priests, then we're talking about the traders, the artisans, peasants, last but not the least, the slaves. So ସମାଜ ନିମ୍ନ ସ୍ତରରେ ଥିଲେ କୋଉମାନେ? କୃଷକ, the farmers and the slave. And very simple to talk, dear friends. Whenever we talk the slaves, who are the slaves? To whom we call the slaves? The slaves were generally Juddhabandi, means during the time of the war, the kings extended the war expedition. They were captive. They had captive the people. They have exiled the people. ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ବନ୍ଦୀ କରିକି ପଠେଇଥିଲେ, and that people, the ଯୁଦ୍ଧବନ୍ଦୀ, they were, for your information, dear friends, the slaves, the imprisoned were treated as the slave in the time of the Egypt. And whenever we talk about the kings, they were just like the soul for the slaves and the farmers. ଏମାନଙ୍କର ରାଜା ଥିଲେ ସତେ ଯେମିତି ଆତ୍ମା ସଦୃଶ, and the maximum slaves were engaged in the construction of the pyramid. The grand pyramid they were constructing at the Gizeh by the Pharaoh Khufu, who were constructing it, the slaves were constructed, they were engaged It was all about the social life. Whenever we talk about the position of the women, ନାରୀ ମାନଙ୍କର ସ୍ଥାନ କଣ ଥିଲା in the Egyptian civilization? Different. The women were empowered. Their position was top in the society. How to talk about the top in the society? It was a top in the society because of what? Because of they were enjoying their rights, enjoying their freedom, enjoying their positions, and women also leading the major role in the society. They were respected, highly respected, and very simple to talk. Some women also ruled over like Odisha, Dandi Mahadevi, Tribhuvan Mahadevi, Pata Mahadevi, Pata Mahadevi too. If we talk about the Regia Sultana, ଆମେ ଯେମିତି ଭାରତୀୟ ସମାଜରେ ଦେଖୁଛେ ଆମ ଓଡ଼ିଶା ସମାଜରେ ଦେଖୁଛେ ନାରୀମାନେ ଶାସନ କରୁଥିଲେ ଠିକ ସେହିପରି ଦ ଓମେନ୍ ଅଲସୋ ରୁଲ୍ଡ ଓଭର ଦ ଇଜିପ୍ଟ and very simple to say they were leading the major role, they played the vital role in the administration to monitor the administration. They helped to their husbands, and also some women rulers also treated as the male members because during the time of the war they were what to say accompanied with they were wearing the male clothes, and it speaks about their valor and the chivalry, dear friends. Now talking about their finance. The finance was divided into three parts. One is dear friends, one is the Krishi. And whenever we talk the Krishi, yes, the river Nile was just like the boost to the Egyptian farmers. River Nile would take a prakara Asirvad thila, a kind of the boost, and the soil was highly fertile. Mati urbar thila, and sufficient water was available. Then we talk about the Egyptians matured in plowing the land, producing the agricultural production, and even if they produced majorly, if we talk about like the barley, wheat, and the different kind of the vegetables they produced. And what they did, the staple food, jaha ବଳୁଥିଲା, the staple food, they were exported to the different parts of the world, to the Mediterranean states, to India, to Mesopotamia, to the different parts they were sending it, and in the place of the irrigation, the pharaohs were playing the important role for the irrigation of the land. And very simple to talk, dear friends. Sadup, they used the Sadup. Sadup was an instrument to lift the water from the river to their agricultural field.
Sure, sir.
Yes, Rachana.
What is Egypt famous for producing agriculture?
Again, tell me.
What is Egypt famous for producing agriculture?
Whenever we may talk about the Egyptians agriculture was entangled with barley, wheat, and different kinds of the vegetables. Okay,
Okay, sir.
very good. Now going to talk about it, dear friends, the Banichi. We noticed that Krishi, agriculture was the one of the agriculture was one of the major source of income that we must keep in mind, and Egyptian civilization was prosperous because of the advance in the field of agricultural production, like we talk with the cultivating to the harvesting the production to the import and export. Now coming to the Banichi, dear friends, when we are talking about the Banichi, the second page of the Egyptian agriculture, when we may talk about it, for your information, dear friends, that is called the inland and the outland, internal trade and the external trade. and the bank of the river Nile. It was the major trade center, and Pharaoh, the ruler, controlled, looked after the trade and commerce, import and export, and for the first time, the Egyptians they extended their trading activities towards the Mediterranean Sea. Then we may talk about the Suez Canal. Then we may talk about the Red Sea. And we may talk about it, dear friends, the Sumerians, sorry, the Missourians, the Egyptians. They were exported what? The metal images. You may talk about the wooden work. You may talk about the curtains. They even if the luxury goods, they were exported to the metal works. Then we may talk about the wooden work. Then we may talk about the curtain and what they imported. So, they imported the luxury items. Like you might talk about the pottery from the Aegean, the pottery of the clothes, particularly of the Syria. And now, dear friends, when to talk about the donkey, also the Egyptians also exported donkey to Sudan. And in lieu of it, they were collecting, they were imported like the woven or the textiles you may talk about, then the furs of the ostrich, then you may talk about the scented juna. It was also collected by them. And difference, the third pillar of the Egyptian agriculture difference that must keep in mind, that is called, they had the different kind of the industry like the butter industry, the stone industry, like you may talk about the image industry, the metal industry, you may talk of the textile also. Also, they had the knowledge about how to make the boat. It was a difference all about the silpa what the Egyptians developed. Dear friends, it is all about, I think, uh, দুই অর্থাৎ আটটা জগৎ that's art. We discussed about difference the Egyptian social life. In the next class, I mean tomorrow, we are going to finish the unit 2, the another 4 units as per the block 2 is concerned, and let's move to block 3. So what discussion today we made, ଆଜି ଆମେ ଯାହା ସବୁ ଆଲୋଚନା କଲେ, if people easily understood or any kinds of the ambiguities e people have, କିଛି ambiguities ଅଛି କି ନା yes transparent as per the discussion is made.
Sir, today discussion was very clear. And
No doubt, sir.
Thank you.
sir, I want to say, if I feel difficult in igno material, sir,
Okay.
I can use different materials like Odisha, many authors.
Yes, yes, you can. IGNO material is not the ultimate. IGNO material, as the students, you have joined in IGNO, that is the responsibility of the IGNO to provide the material. Then, whenever you are writing the answer, you also can refer the other sources. Like I told regarding the world, my paper, you can also refer the J.W. Swain, you can also refer the W.W. Winch, you can also refer the 3 authors. Different authors people can use, no big issues. Okay?
Okay,
Sir, authors ଉପରେ କିଛି different ଅଛି କି sir?
ଆଜ୍ଞା?
Authors ଉପରେ କିଛି different ଅଛି କି sir?
Different ଅଛି. What is my method of teaching is not the method of teaching of others. So what IGNO material is different to the WWH material. WWH material is different to the, and fact is the same, interpretation is different. Suppose I may talk about the uh, Egyptian civilization, Old Kingdom, New Kingdom, Middle Kingdom. I am saying what IGNO says same, all the matter. These are the facts. But that is the responsibility, the act of the teaching of the teachers. How to teach in his own ways, own cup of tea. ତେଣୁକରି authority fact is the same, interpretation different. Yes?
ओके सर ओके सर
ठीक है. ओके, नमस्कार.
नमस्कार सर.
नमस्कार
नमस्कार
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
ओके थैंक यू सर
थैंक यू सर.
नमस्कार सर
नमस्कार. नमस्कार.
हेलो ଆଉ କଣ କାର ଡାଉଟ୍ ଟିକେ ପଚାରି ପାରିବେ କି?
डाउट होची डिफरेंस स्टडी मटेरियल गुडा को अदर सब सोर्स रेफरेंस स्टडी मटेरियल ताको हमको रेडी
ମୋର ବି
करे
ଏଇଟା
पड़िबो.
ମୋର ବି ଏଇଟା ବହୁତ ଦିନ डाउट ଥିଲା कि ଆମେ जो भी इग्नो स्टडी ଉପରେ जो
मैंने
ଦେଖିଲେ ସେଟା जो
सार जो गुडा बतन डिस्कशन कर जंदी माने तार
हाँ।
बोधे 5% बोधे इग्नो मटेरियल अछि.
ହଁ ସେଇଟା କଥା ଆମେ ସବୁ କିଛି ତ ପାଉନୁ ନା ଏଥିରୁ
हां तनु करे रेफरेंस मटेरियल यूज करे पड़िबो.
ହଁ
भाई टिके सुनंतु इग्नो मटेरियल्स
कोनतो?
होउची टिके कंक्रीट मटेरियल माने